when you sit down, that way you'll remember where your seat number is. So teachers, if you have a student at this time with a green homecoming show ticket, you may release them from class, and they should be back probably about 3:15. All right, thanks so much.
Okay, this one's my precious, so let's see. Okay. And I'll be posting your, so the only thing I just need for you to kind of keep an eye out for, it will pop up and tell you if anybody's in the waiting room. So if you see that pop up while you're recording, if you would just
allow them in.
Allow them in, yes.
Okay.
All right. We are good. All right, and then you just tell me when you need to move your slide.
Okay, thank you.
All right, okay, turn it over to Mrs. Phelps.
Hi. So, have any of you ever read a really great book? Raise your hand high. How many of you?
Raise it proud, yeah.
How many of you love reading? Raise your hand. Keep it up if you liked a book that you read, if you love a book. Okay, how many of you have read a book like in elementary school or middle school that you enjoyed, but you just haven't found anything that you like lately? Raise your hand. Okay, that hits most of us. So most of you raised your hand. So most of you have either read a book that you enjoy, you're reading a book that you enjoy. I'm sorry for the people at home, I'm right up on them. Or you've got ideas about books that you enjoy. So do you know why I'm in here today? Ooh, I heard it. A little bit louder, please. To tell you about books. Specifically, how to find a book that you will enjoy. You can go ahead and go on to the next one. So there are different types of books. What are the different types of books called? Do you know what that classification is called? There's fiction and nonfiction. Very good. Oh, you've got lots of great ideas. What else did you say? And fantasy, sci-fi, historical fiction. Oh, very good. So she's naming a lot of different genres. Do you know what genres are? Have you heard of historical fiction and sci-fi and fantasy? Okay, so I've got a video embedded, and Ms. Cummings, if you want to share this with your, you're good. But if you want to share it with your online distance learners, then they can watch that video that's embedded in genres. Okay. But she's named a lot of the things that are going to be on that video, so I don't think we need to take the time right now. So genres are categories of books characterized by similarities in style, form, or subject matter. So by subject matter, they mean like fantasy is going to have characters who are not human. All of your fantasy books are going to have that, okay? All right, you can go on to the next one. So she's named a lot of different genres. What are some genres that you know?
Right there.
Dystopian, thank you. Does anybody know anything about dystopian? Okay.
It's like the world that's corrupted.
Very good. So the world is corrupted, and then what happens?
Like everything's like messed up.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and then does anybody try hard to fix it? Yeah. And a lot of times in YA books, which is mostly what we have at Smyrna High School Library, in YA young adult books, it's somebody your age who it's thrust upon you that you have to fix it. Can you think of any dystopian novels? Divergent, very good. Hunger Games? Yeah? So those are some ideas, some examples of dystopian. I've also brought a couple of examples because what I'm going to do is after we list a genre, then I'm going to show you a couple of books from that genre, and you're going to pick which one you want me to read a page of, okay? We're just going to read a page of it, and you are going to put down what you think of that book. So I have dystopian. Oh, thanks, Ms. Cummings. I have dystopian at the top, and then there's fantasy, historical fiction, mystery, romance, sci-fi, and suspense. And there are, how many stars out next to each of these? 5. So if we have one, if we liked the book just kind of meh, and we might just give it 1 star. Okay, we might just shade in 1 star. And if you loved the book and you loved the genre, then you can shade in all 5 of the stars. All right, I'm going to give you an example after we read the first ones, okay? So, are we more interested, let's judge these books by the covers. Ready? Are we more interested in legend or rook? Now raise your hand if you like the look of legend better. He does. How many of you like the look of rook better? Okay, so we've got more that liked rook. I've actually read this book and it is quite good. So I'm just going to randomly open it to a page and I'm going to read to you a page of it. He came springing over to where she stood and, before she knew what was happening, had thrown his arms around her in celebration, one handful of lacy white cloth. The gendarme's unpatched eye looked them over once. Oops, sorry, I've got somebody who popped up. The gendarme's unpatched eye looked them over once. Then the man made a sudden decision to go help with the luggage inspection. As soon as the guard was out of earshot, Renee said, "That hurt. Your skirt is very bumpy." He tightened his grip. "They say they will search you." "Prevent them," she said in his ear. Renee released her a little to swipe hair product off her nose with a handkerchief. "What news, Hammond?" he asked beneath his breath, eyes still on Sophia. Spear was back beside them, jaw tight. The gendarme wouldn't say why everyone is trying to leave the city or why we're being stopped, he replied. Ah, Renee held her gaze. "I will be back," he said, right before yelling, "Wait! You there, monsieur! Do not touch those!" He strode quickly over to the rummaging guards. "They want to search me," Sophia whispered. "Looks like he already searched you himself." She held in a frustrated sigh. Spear had no way of understanding why it would be such a disaster to have the firelighter confiscated. She watched Renee foment an argument with the gendarmes, the tempo of her pulse increasing. She might have to do something about this. And then she turned and found Benoit beside them. "Best to get back in the Landover," he said quietly. "We will be leaving soon." Sophia frowned, puzzled as to why Benoit would think this. One guard had already stripped Renee's jacket off, running hands along his shirt sleeves, and the gendarme with the patch was returning to the group with a determined step, his one eye on Sophia. Okay, so the 2 things I want you to do is, number 1, you're going to shade in how many stars for how much you liked it. And then you see that long space underneath it. I only want you to write 2 words, unless you really liked this book and so you want to write the title. So the title is Rook. If you want to check out this book, write down Rook. And then I want you to write down 2 words, and that's it. 2 words to describe what I read to you, what dystopian felt like to you. And so with this 1 page, I'm going to say, okay, it kind of caught my interest, so I'm going to give it 3 stars. So on your page, I would shade in 3 stars. Okay? And then gendarme. That's kind of intriguing to me, so I'm going to write down that word. Gendarme. So maybe I'll look that up later, or maybe I'll remember how much I liked this book or how little I liked this book by that word. Okay, gendarme. And then something else, like, my word might be intriguing. I love to read in the middle of a book because it usually pulls me into the story. And that one definitely pulled me in, so that's what I'm going to do. 3 stars, 2 words, unless I want to read the book, and I'll also write down Rook, okay? While you're doing that, I'm going to check and make sure nobody's wanting to come in and join our conversation. Yep, there is somebody. Hi. It says Evan J. Hi, Evan J. Good to see you. All right. So I'm going to erase that so you can do it. All right, Evan, so we are talking about genres today. And we've discussed dystopian, and what's next on our list? Fantasy. What do we know about fantasy? Non-realistic characters. There are definitely going to be non-realistic characters in this. So if you're interested in fantasy, you might want to write down some of those non-realistic characters as some of your 2 words, okay? So non-realistic characters. Do they always happen in realistic places? She says no. What do we think? No. What are some fantasy books that you know of? Harry Potter. So Harry Potter, it is in a magical world. So that's not real. And there's wizards. That's not real, right? There's lots of fantastical creatures there. Okay, let me pull up my fantasy books. We have The Sea of Monsters and The Golden Compass. All right, so look at those 2 covers. We're going to judge them. How many of you are more interested in The Sea of Monsters? Ooh, that's a lot. How about The Golden Compass? Yeah, I've read this one. It is good. But this big eyeball and running across, yeah, that looks really interesting. Okay, so random page. Nobody gets the fleece. I got nobody, Polyphemus gloated. He crept to the cave entrance and saw the Cyclops, grinning wickedly, holding up empty air. The monster shook his fist and a baseball cap fluttered to the ground. There was Annabeth, hanging upside down by her legs. Ha, the Cyclops said, nasty invisible girl. Already got feisty one for wife. Means you gotta be grilled with mango chutney. Annabeth struggled, but she looked dazed. She had a nasty cut on her forehead. Her eyes were glassy. I'll rush him, I whispered to Clarice. Our ship is around the back of the island. You and Grover? No way, they both said at the same time. Clarice had armed herself with a highly collectible ram's horn spear from the Cyclops' cave. Grover had found a sheep's thigh bone, which he didn't look too happy about, but he was gripping it like a club, ready to attack. We'll take him together, Clarice growled. Yeah, Grover said. Then he blinked, like he couldn't believe he just agreed with Clarice about something. All right, I say, attack plan Macedonia. All right, so shade in the color, the number of stars that you liked it. The title is The Sea of Monsters in case you want to check it out. And write down your 2 words. Is there anybody else? Nope. All right, are we ready? Okay, what's up next? Historical fiction. What's historical fiction? Can you think of books that are historical fiction or what that might mean? So historical. What would that point to? What's history? So maybe it's a book that's kind of about history, but then it says fiction at the end. So what do we know about fiction? It's not real, right? So it's history, but it's not real. So what that means is that some of it can be historical. It's going to be set in a certain time period. And there might be some characters in it that are real, but there are some characters and lots of things that happen in it that are not true. And there can be some things that happen that are true. All right, so we have Miss Jane Pittman, the autobiography, or Number the Stars. All right, so what do we think? Miss Jane Pittman, how many of you are more intrigued with this book? How about Number the Stars? Okay, that's a lot of you. So just real quick, they both have pictures of females on the front. What's more intriguing about this book? The stars, the gold. Okay, what time period do we think this is from? With that Star of David? A little bit louder, I think I heard it. So maybe World War II? Okay, let's find out. Number the Stars. Quiet. Let her speak for herself. Your name? He was glaring at Ellen. Ellen swallowed. Lisa, she said and cleared her throat. Lisa Johansson. The officer stared at them grimly. Now, Mama said in a strong voice, you have seen that we are not hiding anything. My children, go back to bed. The officer ignored her. Suddenly he grabbed a handful of Ellen's hair. Ellen winced. He laughed scornfully. You have a blonde child sleeping in the other room, and you have this blonde daughter. He gestured toward Anna Marie with his head. Where did you get the dark-haired one? He twisted the lock of Ellen's hair. From a different father? From the milkman? Papa stepped forward. Don't speak to my wife in such a way. Let go of my daughter, or I will report you for such treatment. Or maybe you got her someplace else, the officer continued with a sneer. From the Rosens. Okay, so that's what we get of this one. So go ahead and put down how many stars. 2 words, and if you like that book, it is called Number the Stars. All right, so up next is mystery. What do we think mystery is going to be? What were you saying? Mysterious, yes. So there could be a crime that happens. And then you figure out what happened in the crime, right? Do you figure out what happens at the end of every mystery? No. Good. That was a quick answer. No. Sometimes they leave you hanging, or sometimes the ending is mysterious, as you said. All right, so we have Shut Your Eyes Tight and The Passenger. I'm going to show you all these books. Which book cover do we like better? How many of you liked The Passenger? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How about Shut Your Eyes Tight? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we're going to go for The Passenger by Lisa Lutz. I'm going to go kind of close to the beginning of this one. July 20th, 2009, to Ryan from Joe. I'll admit you people have done a heck of a job keeping me secret, but in general, you have to assume that you don't have any secrets anymore, even from me. If you're bored and still living in the past like I am, it's easy to trawl those websites and follow comment after comment until you find a truly intriguing thread. You were in a mental hospital, weren't you? That's why you haven't written in over 6 months. Why hide that? I was almost relieved when I figured it out. Not that I want you unwell. but knowing that maybe sometimes you can't live with yourself makes me feel a little bit better. You don't have to tell me what it was like. None of the cuckoo's nest details, but you don't have to keep it a secret either. I'd probably have ended up there too if my life weren't such a high wire act. Vigilance keeps you sharp like an animal. There isn't much time for melancholy. So when you were in the nut house, did you get to the bottom of all your troubles? Joe. That was interesting. Let's see what you all thought of that. Ooh, I'm glad you want the title. It is called The Passenger. Passenger. And after I finish, you all will have a chance to go ahead and check out your books today. See if anything's popped up. Looks good. Okay. All right, what's next? Romance. So we have everything, and love, hate, and other filters. What do we know or think we know about romance? What's a romance book going to be about? Two people, a love story. You said love as well? Yeah. So a lot of times romances are two people, love story, but it can just be relationship story. Just so you know, it doesn't have to be love, but it is usually centers on the two people and their story together of their relationship. So everything, and love, hate, and other filters. See those? All right, so how many of you are more interested in love, hate, and other filters? Ooh, you should have had a better cover. Yeah, maybe. I read this one, it's pretty good. How about everything? Is it this book cover or is it something else that we like about this? Is the cover? Did you know it was made into a movie? Yes, okay. So you might like that as well. Everything. OWTSDSYD. The universe and my subconscious may be conspiring against me. I'm in the den playing Photnik with my mom. So far in tonight's game, I've gotten tiles to play OWTSYD, Freedom, and Secrets, SEEKRITS. That last one nets me a bonus for using all 7 letters. She frowns down at the board, and I think she's going to challenge my word, but she doesn't. She tallies the score, and for the first time ever, I'm actually winning. I'm ahead of her by 7 points. I look down at the score and then back at her. Are you sure you did that right? I ask. I don't want to beat her on top of everything else. I tally the score to find that she's right. Her eyes are on my face, but I keep staring at the scorecard. She's been like this all night, watchful, as if I'm a puzzle to be worked out. Or maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe it's the guilt I feel for being so selfish, for wanting to be with Ollie, even now. Every moment I spend with him, I learn something new. I become someone new. She takes the scorecard from my hands and lifts my chin so that I have to meet her eyes. What's going on, honey? And that's where they leave it. So what did we think of romance? How many people loved that? Meh. How many people thought it was about a 3-star? How many of you? 3-star? Yeah. Or maybe a little higher.
It would have been great if they had some romance in it.
Yeah, just talked about Ollie. Right.
Yeah, who's Ollie?
Picked the wrong page.
You get it.
Read that book and watched that movie. It's better than that.
It is really good.
It's good.
It's really good, and the movie is good too.
But that's a good part too. Is her relationship with her mom is important as
It's
well.
important,
Yeah. All right, are we ready to move on? I have a couple who are still working. I'll give you another minute. If you needed the title of the book, sorry. Everything, everything. What's next? Sci-fi. What's sci-fi? What's sci-fi? What do you think sci-fi means? Do you know what sci is short for, maybe? Science? Yeah, science. And then fi is fiction. So science fiction, what do you think that is? Science that's not real. Yeah. So what he's saying is sci-fi is science fiction. It's science that's not real. And that's it. It hasn't been invented yet. So if you were in the 1980s and they were writing about smartphones, those were not around then. But if you look back, there are books that write about things that are now invented. And so you think, why is that in sci-fi? Because it wasn't around then. Okay? So we might catch up to those books and make that science not fiction anymore, or we might not. Okay. Let's look at, I gave 3 choices for this one. So we have Maximum Ride, Delirium, and this one's called The Uglies. And it's part of a series. Uglies, Delirium, and Maximum Ride. All right, so how many of you are most intrigued with Maximum Ride? Nope. How about Delirium? Yeah, you like Delirium? Looks interesting to you? The Uglies. And there's barely anything on that cover, isn't there? It's just a white cover with like, what's going on? Okay, let's see, what's going on? The Secret. They descended the ridge on the far side, down a steep, narrow path. David led her quickly in the darkness, finding footing on the almost invisible trail without hesitation. It was all Tally could do to keep up. The whole day had been one shock after another. And now, to top it all off, she was going to meet David's parents. That was the last thing she'd expected after showing him her pendant and telling him she hadn't kept the smoke a secret. His reactions were different from those of anyone she'd ever met before. Maybe it was because he'd grown up out here, away from the customs of the city, or maybe he was just different. They left the familiar ridgeline far behind, and the mountain rose steeply to one side. So that's all of this short page over here. Do you want me to read a little bit up here, or just leave it? She says leave it. We're good. We got the impression we need. How many of you want to check out this book? You do. I'm intrigued by it too. This one is very popular. It goes out a lot.
I read the first one. Is that the first one?
Yeah, Uglies is the first
Okay,
one.
I read the second one though. That makes a lot of sense.
I know. Sometimes that's the book you can get your hands on. Because there could be aliens out there, but we haven't discovered them yet, right? But yet. All right, so we're on to the last genre that we have stickered in the library, and I'll explain that in just a second. What is it? Suspense. I left it for the end, you know, to just give you some suspense. What is suspense? There's going to be a lot of action in it. Suspense actually wants to scare you. It scares the people who are in the book, and they're trying to scare you as well, okay? How many of you like scary movies? They are so popular, I don't understand why. But yeah, suspense is a lot like scary movies. They are gonna try to scare you, okay? So, since so many of you love that, you might wanna really pay attention to these, okay? Her fearful symmetry and the oracle year. All right, so how many of you are more intrigued by the oracle year? Oh, wow, that's everybody. What is so cool looking about this book? The eyeball? Yeah, you like the eyeball? Do we like the colors on it too? The black and the white and then the pops of red? Yeah, I like that as well. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let somebody decide. Tell me where I should go in this book. Front, middle, back. Back? Okay. I'm gonna go close to the back. Okay. That was partly why he had kept the radio off and why he'd kept conversation to a minimum. If Lee learned too much about Will Dando, the man sitting next to her might stop being the all-powerful oracle and become just a kid on his bike, rushing down a hill, wondering how he was going to die. All that, and underneath and above and around it all, sick worry for Hamza and Nico. He didn't know their condition and couldn't call, didn't even know where they were. For all he knew, they were back at Quantico, being questioned by Lucien. Will eyed the radio, that saucy temptress, holding out its promise of world news that wasn't a day out of date. Just for a few minutes, he said out loud, earning him a raised eyebrow from Lee. He pressed the power button. Don't know the oracle, Hamza said, his voice tainted with a slight overlay of static. But if I did, I'd tell him to just keep doing what he's doing. My wife and I were hurt in the attack by Hosea Branson's people, but that's not his fault. He saved a lot of lives, helped a lot of people. I don't want what happened to us to stop him from what he's doing. I think he's a hero. Yes, Will said, listening, understanding the gift that Hamza was giving him. A second voice, a woman assured and confident. You claim not to know the oracle, but as we know, he's been revealed to be a man named Will Dando, whom you definitely do know. You went to high school with him, and we've spoken to people who say you two are extremely close friends. And yet, they leave us there. The title is The Oracle Year. If any of you are interested in checking that one out. Okay, down at the bottom of your worksheet, it says other classifications. So if you notice, we have stickers for the ones that I presented to you today. Those are the genres that we have in the library. We also have realistic fiction that we don't have stickers for. And most of the books in fiction that don't have stickers are realistic fiction. And that just means like a coming of age story. Does that make sense? Or should I explain that better? Yeah. So like everything you go through in your teenage years might be in one of these kind of books. So that's realistic fiction. And something bad might happen or something really good might happen. And so that's kind of the climax of your story. All right, so the other classifications at the bottom are classic. And we have stickers for those. And those are just books that are classic, and so they're good literature. And you might have those assigned to you during English classes, or you might just be interested in reading those. That's going to be a good piece of work. Okay, graphic novel is the next one at the bottom. What are graphic novels? Do you know what those are? They're a lot like comic books. Yes, there's lots of pictures in them. I brought an example for you. And very few words. So these are highly popular. Why are they highly popular? You don't have to read a whole lot of them. But also, a lot of us are visual learners. And so seeing those pictures, it really helps you to learn more about it. All right, next is LGBT. So if a book is LGBT, like this one's romance, but it also has the rainbow sticker, that means that either the main character or one of the main characters is going to be an LGBT. Okay. We also have movie and TV. That means it's either been made into a movie or a television show. And then we have books in Spanish. So we have the stickers like that. And one of the most popular types of books in our library are sports books. So we got a sticker for those. It's not really a genre, but we just want you to be able to find the books that you're looking for. So we got sports sticker books. Okay, so that's all of those. We can go on to the next slide, please. All right, to your neighbor, I want you to tell them your favorite genre. Ooh, we have even. Mystery. Do we need a new genre? Are there any genres that are missing? No? Maybe? Is there anything that you really enjoy that we didn't read about today? Like something with more action? No. All right, we covered it. Great. Okay. Thoughts about genres. What do we think about genres? Is it a good way to tell you what different books are? Yeah. So you like having genres, you like knowing what all of those are? Okay. All right, let's move to the last slide. All right, so those of you who wrote down a book title and want to check out a book, I can go ahead and do that for you. But those of you who do not know, I'm going to show you how you can find a book and how you can put it on hold, and we'll just bring it to your classroom. Okay? So, how many of you from the books that I read today, you know what you want to check out? She knows, he knows. Anybody else? Okay. So go ahead and get your device out. If you have a phone.
If you don't, you're welcome to go ahead and go over here and grab a computer.
Because you're going to write pretty soon too.
Yes, we are going to
So you can go ahead and
out of the day.
you can go ahead and grab your computers if you need it. And go ahead and go to the Smyrna High web page. How do you guys feel this year? Do you feel like it's quieter in school, or are you still feeling like you're able to talk? I feel like these masks kind of muffle my voice sometimes. So sometimes I'm like, do I even say? Yeah.
In my last class period, we kind of talked about, I asked them, how many students do you guys think are normally at Smyrna High School? How many kids do you think are normally in the hallways? Well, that would give away the answer, I think. So how many do you think? Like, if basic remember how the hallways used to be when it would be like so crowded? How many kids do you think are here?
7,000.
7,000, no. 300? Okay. No.
Somewhere between 300 and 7,000.
7,000, yes. So almost 2,400 enrolled students go to Smyrna High School. And we have about, I feel like about 1,200
Yes, about
that
half.
are here in the hallways
half.
now. So that kind of really makes you think, like, how many kids are normally here versus how many are not here.
Yeah.
It's
and how crowded the hallways are and how much more crowded they would be.
Right.
Do you need a computer? Or do you have a phone? You got your phone? All right, pull it out, please. All right, so Smyrna High webpage, and you'll click on academics and scroll down to Library Media Center. Raise your hand when you get to that part. Everybody right here, Library Media Center? Perfect, thank you, thank you, thank you. And those of you who are advanced, you can just go ahead and follow the rest of it, okay? But I'll be walking through it with you. Okay, first you log in before you look for a book. So go back real quick. Read it. Yeah. Okay, you go to the top left. I should have put this on here. Top left, and it has those lines. And then it'll show you where to log in down at the bottom.
All right, we're gonna go ahead and end our live stream.